Welcome to the SNA Live podcast, hosted by Three the Hard Way. This is for the culture. Black and Latinx. Where you at?
What's good, cigar fam? It's your boy Seaway, and welcome to SNA Live, the show not just about cigars and cigar lounges, but life in general. Because if you're in a nice-ass cigar lounge with your peoples and only talking about cigars, then you missed the whole motherfucking point. We're recording live, as always, from Smoking Ashes, Cigars, and Haberdashery, the hottest cigar lounge in these United States. With me, as always, are my partners in crime, the GM and Leak. Say what's up to the people.
Yo, what's good?
What's going on, fam? Blessed to be here. Blessed to be here.
Today's episode is episode number 4 of season 3, entitled, we're making the sequel, y'all, Black to the Future Part 2.
Part 2. Part 2.
No Marty McFly. That's Black to the Future Part 2. The topics we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about the past sports greats of HBCUs. We're going to be talking about the future of HBCUs with respect to sports. We're going to be joined by our special guest, former NFL scout, Mr. David Turner, will be joining us in the second topic. Segments we're bringing back for this particular episode, This Can't Be Life, where we talk about just the shit that we heard this past week that we just couldn't believe or just couldn't stomach or just couldn't even fathom that it happened in real life. And as always, we're going to be concluding with our segment, What You Rockin' With, where we talk about what we feeling with, what we're vibing with, you know, just what we're rocking with for that particular week. And with that being said, as usual, wow. Cut your stick, light them up, and let's get it popping.
Welcome to SNA Live, a podcast like no other. Featuring Three the Hard Way. You want it, you got it. Yes. We are back, season 3, episode 4, Black to the Future, part 2. Can we project the futures of the new HBCUs? And will they last? And if so, for how long? Well, we about to find out. But right now, it's the perfect time to grab your drink, get your seat, cut your stick, and let's rock. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna be saying duh all night now. Duh.
Yo, Hot Shots Part 2 was like one of my favorite fucking movies as a kid growing up.
Crazy.
It was so stupid.
Stupid but hilarious.
My man said, and now I am going to kill you until you die from it.
Yo, the amount of shit
Saddam Hussein,
Until you die from it.
Yo, that movie was wild, bro.
Oh man, that movie was so stupid.
That movie was wild.
Oh, yo, before we get into the episode, you know, and get into what we're smoking, what we're drinking, GM, shout out to you for rocking that hoodie.
Yeah, man, it was the perfect time.
Yeah. It
just made sense. I had purchased this for some time ago, and just said, you know what, one day it's gonna make perfect sense to wear. You know what I mean? Like, there's always a reason. Like, you know me too. I like to wear things for statements. That's my thing. So, it just lined up perfectly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sometimes you get stuff where it's like, this is hot. Like, I don't know how it's gonna fit just yet. Like the picture of the Harlem Nights that we have in the bathroom here, Smoking Ashes.
Yeah.
I bought that on 125 like 6 years ago.
For no reason.
I was just like, yo, this is one of my favorite movies.
It's gonna make sense.
I don't know where I'm gonna hang it up. I didn't have a house yet.
Yeah.
You know what
I
I'm
get
saying? It just was like, yo, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this, but it's gonna fit. Like,
that's the thing about how crazy the dynamic is with the human mind. Like, you can almost, like you said, you can project that this here resonates with you. I just don't know where in this paradigm that it does, but it makes perfect sense for me right now to purchase this.
Exactly.
Because I'll make it work later on, man.
For sure.
So the question is, though, not to get too deep, are you manifesting what's going to happen by purchasing it, as opposed to it just happening? You just happen to have it. Yeah, another topic for another day.
Things that make you go,
Yeah, exactly. But here we are, season 3, episode 4, Black to the Future, part 2. And I think we did Black to the Future in season 2, if I'm not mistaken.
It was episode 1, actually. I looked it up the other day.
Yeah.
Black to the Future was episode 1 of season 2.
Yeah, so here we are, part 2, season 3.
Yeah.
Follow that. So,
yeah, and if you didn't see that one, go back and check that one out yourself too.
Exactly. All right, so before we get into the topics of the day, we, as always, get into what we're drinking, what we're smoking. GM, I'm going to let you lead it off this particular episode, brother. What you got this particular episode to smoke on?
So as always, try to find ways to plug in our sponsor, our hydration sponsor. Our little
Marv, what up?
A little alkaline, super antioxidant water.
Alkaline.
Big shout out to Marvelous Waters out there doing his thing.
Sir,
Black owned,
refreshing.
and he's very, 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 very he's very, his business is very important to him.
He's passionate. He's
There's
very
a passion
passionate
behind
about
it.
what he does.
You know what I mean? And I respect that. And in today's world, it's just always good to see good guys do good things. So big shout out to Marv.
Facts.
That's what we're drinking as our hydration sponsor of season 3. But what I am smoking on, what's funny? You guys both might get a little surprised. I've never smoked a cigar here before. This is the Midnight Express, Caldwell. I've never had it before.
Okay.
I got so addicted to smoking the Eastern Standard that I just never wanted to try this one. I don't know why. I was spoiled with it. So this here is a Caldwell release, Midnight Express. It's the Maduro version of the Eastern Standard, so to say. It's a Dominican cigar. Their origin is from DR, Dominican Republic. It's a Connecticut seed Arapiraca Maduro wrapper. I had to say that first because
It's so hard to pronounce.
you ain't fucking lying. That one was tough.
Take your time. You gotta focus. All right.
That one was tough. But, and as funny that is, it's true. But at the same time, though, like this, I've only had a couple of cigars that had this particular tobacco, strain in it, and it's always, for me, it's always separated itself from other cigars. It's a taste you could distinctly, root out from all the others. The binder is a Dominican Habano, and the filler is Dominican Corojo and Criollo 98, with a little bit of Nicaraguan Habano. The construction is good, as always, when it comes to a Caldwell. Perfect size. The Toro is usually the go-to for me. I haven't hit on any of the notes yet because I just started, but I'll keep you guys posted as we keep going on.
So I'm very curious to see what you think about that because Eastern Standard was one of my favorite states in
Same
the
here,
humidor,
yeah.
right? And then I think for all of
A lot
us,
of the members too.
yeah. So I've heard, you know what? I'm gonna save it. We'll circle back.
Okay, I'll be honest with it though.
Yeah, please do. Bleak, what about you, brother?
So I stepped out my comfort zone a little bit for this one. So I'm smoking the El Septimo, company named El Septimos. This is the Aqua Nu as part of their Gilgamesh collection. So this company is not very well recognized in the States. It's more of a European company.
Swiss Geneva, right?
Yeah.
Swiss Geneva.
It's actually the people who own it are they're into real estate and like hotels and hospitality business.
Got it.
Okay.
So I guess they came out with a cigar to kind of go with their high end,
Makes
hotels
sense.
in Europe.
Makes sense.
But the reason why these are not very well known in the States, even though I guess maybe in the past 3 or 4 years they've been in the US, but most of these cigars go for $40 or above.
Easily.
Easy. They even have
There's some that are
they
like
have a
60, 65.
Exactly. So the Gilgamesh collection was kind of, I believe, was made for the U.S. market because they wanted to have something a little bit more affordable.
For the price point.
For the price point. So this is actually a $20 cigar. So
Which is still way above the average.
That's why I said I stepped out of my comfort zone. I'm not really into the expensive cigars. Sometimes I feel like I get kind of underwhelmed sometimes when
You get let down?
Yeah, I have a $35
Because you
cigar.
figure like you spending twice or triple the amount that you usually spend,
Exactly.
and the experience is not triple or double the experience that you usually have.
And I get pissed off. I get pissed off if I have that experience. But this is my first time having this. I've had other El Septimos, the $40 and $50 cigars. Hey, I want to say it's hard to say they're worth it, but when you're smoking it, you're like, okay, this is a really good fucking cigar.
Well, you don't tell the man who drives the Rolls Royce was it worth it. You know what I mean? Like he bought it because he knows it's worth it. So
Really good cigars.
if you have it, you can afford to, to purchase it. It's definitely not a waste.
Do your thing.
That cigar, though, in general, just talking on the high end stuff, I love that brand.
Yeah, the Gilgamesh collection.
Well, the entire El
Oh, just El
Septimo line.
Septimo. Yeah, definitely. This is my first having this one.
Every single cigar I've ever smoked from him. If you guys remember too, peep this. A lot of y'all definitely won't know this unless we said it before. But during COVID, they sent us a care package.
Sir.
Yeah.
A very beautiful care package.
They went all out.
Like they sent us their top end sticks, and they didn't just send like a 4-pack.
Yeah.
They sent. We each had I think 2 or 3 cigars each.
Yeah.
In this illustrious gold wrap box. Like they really went all out.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, they had like flyers, not just flyers, but like pamphlets.
Yeah, they had pamphlets.
And they gave us golf shirts too.
Yes, they did. They gave us shirts.
I forgot about that.
The hats.
Yeah.
The care package is real. The point I was trying to get to though is that they sent us the 7 and 15 year age cigars, and those things hit like crazy.
Yeah.
I honestly, you know what's funny? I think we recorded one of our early episodes of season 1 smoking.
We did.
We did when we first started.
Because I didn't think we did until you talked about the rapping.
We did. We did. We all smoked.
All 3 of them? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because because I remember you mentioned the rapping.
Yeah.
And how like attention to detail.
Presentation.
Yeah, the presentation, exactly.
They went all out.
So you see this burn line.
Great cigar though. I'm
Great
curious
cigar.
to know what you think about that.
So this is just give a little more history on it. This is 10 years age. All Costa Rican tobacco, by the way. So this company does all their manufacturing in Costa Rica. If you know about the tobacco industry, it is very expensive to make cigars in Costa Rica.
Yeah, hence their price point.
Yes, exactly. So, 10 years age, medium bodied. Funny little fact. Gilgamesh, you know where that came from? I had to look that up because I was wondering. I was like, that's a cool ass kind of name.
It sounds familiar.
So King Gilgamesh.
Yeah,
okay.
that's
He
what I
was
was
a
going
king.
to say.
King in BC times. He was king of a small little area which is now Iraq. He was the king of Iraq. His name was King Gilgamesh. That was just something. That was, I guess, a cool ass name. We'll find out where they got that from. But just a little fact there. As far as notes, so far I'm getting like coffee, creamy type of notes. But definitely with the retro hail, it's very nutty. Pause. Very nutty. So, but it's a good medium. It hasn't gone above the medium.
Oh shit!
I'll get back to this. It's a
Yeah.
little. I'm a little conflicted right now, but I'm definitely get back. There's a lot of stuff going on here. A lot of nuances going on.
Yeah.
It is a creamy cigar, which is kind of like down my lane as far as like just the experience. But I'll definitely get back when we check and we follow back up. What you got?
Okay. So going back to the Gilgamesh thing, I always thought it was an interesting name too. I was like I never looked it up or whatever, but okay, Gilgamesh.
Yeah, King Gilgamesh.
Wouldn't exactly name a child that, but it's an interesting name. Definitely interesting name. You said from Iris, so that's Mesopotamia.
Yes, Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
You said Iraq too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
No, but Iraq is where
Yeah,
Mesopotamia.
it was
But that's
Mesopotamia.
also when you go to other sides of biblical. That's like where the Garden of Eden is from too.
Yeah, it's with all
That
that's all
region,
the quote,
Iraq,
unquote,
is usually
the cradle of life. Like the whole thing started there. Okay, so I have something that we've had in our humidor for the longest, and I'm trying to remember if I've actually smoked this before. If I did, it was probably within our first few months open, and I haven't smoked it since. So this is Jacob's Ladder by Southern Draw.
Oh, that's one of my favorites. The Lancero. Which one? You don't have the
So I know I have the Toro.
The Toro.
So Pennsylvania broadleaf wrapper. Maduro binder from just as USA. Didn't specify.
Okay.
And then Liguero, Nicaragua is where the filler is from. And the notes are molasses and toasted spices.
Okay.
So I specifically picked this one because of what we're drinking today.
Paired it.
There you go. So I'm like, okay, molasses, toasted spices. All right, you know what? This looks like it's gonna go perfect with what we're drinking. And what we're drinking is, which is one of the coolest names for a wine company, Gnarly Head.
Gnarly head. Gnarly dude.
Out of Lodi, not Jersey, Lodi, California.
Yeah.
So they started off.
My favorite region.
They started off making a Zinfandel. Their goal was to just make a really like hit in Zinfandel, and they succeeded. And then just went into other
I was gonna say it's actually good too.
other types of reds. So this is a red blend. So it has, I'm sorry, it's called the Double Black 1924 edition. And the reason they called it the 1924 edition is 1924 was in the heart of Prohibition. So it's like a dark, secret, speakeasy type of, drink or whatever. So it has rich fruit flavors like blackberry and plum, but then a hint of chocolate, which I was like, oh, okay, with the other like spices or whatever. And I'm like, oh, so this sounds like it's gonna go perfect with the Jacob's Ladder. Let me, try this or whatever. And we've said this before, I know for the most part we have Scotch, dark rum, bourbon, a rye. You can get a full-bodied red wine and it'll pair very nicely with a cigar.
Absolutely.
It doesn't always have to be
a
whiskey of some type or a dark rum. It can't be like a Pinot Noir, which is a little bit lighter.
It's lighter.
Like a nice heavy cab, a red blend.
Unless you're gonna pair precisely, because you could also pair, a lighter experience with a lighter wine.
True. Very true.
It's how deep you want to get, right?
Yeah.
You want to get crazy like that, you can do that. It's actually a great combination. I won't lie, I've done it before. Definitely on a summer day, it always helps if you're by the beach. But I've done a Chardonnay before with a Connecticut, and it hits perfect.
So a Chardonnay, I gotta tell this quick story. I was at a restaurant, an Italian restaurant here in Jersey. I don't really dine out here too often, but it was like a lazy, weekday. I just was like, I don't feel like going into the city. I'm gonna hang out in Jersey. Whatever. Went to an Italian restaurant. There's this dude behind me, and he calls over the waiter, and the waiter's like, hey, how can I help you? And he was like, you call this a Chardonnay?
So he had like a spaz out over the wine?
Over the fucking. Now my back is turned. I'm with my wife. My wife's facing the dude. I can't see him, but I can hear everything he's saying because he's sitting literally right behind me. And he was like, a Chardonnay is supposed to have a buttery finish. This is not even close to what a Chardonnay is supposed to be. This is not hitting my palate right. And I was like, yo, if I went out of my way to try be that big of an asshole, I don't think I could be that big of an asshole. Who does that?
But the funny thing is, you picked it.
Not only that, he's the fucking waiter. He didn't select the wine.
That's what I'm saying. You picked it. You're the one that selected that one. You picked that particular wine that you're drinking. So you read the name. Sometimes the menu will give you a little bit of a description. Or if you don't know, or if it doesn't, we have technology. You look it up. So you ordered the fucking wine that you weren't happy with. You take it out on the waiter like he's the one that made it.
Exactly. Like he just ran from the fucking vineyard and was like,
Fucking
here's my new batch. It was the most dickhead shit I think I've seen in a restaurant in my entire life.
That sounds very 80-ish, sweater around the neck kind of guy.
Collar up on the polo.
Yeah, sweater wrapped around the neck kind of guy. Definitely.
You know who my father is?
Yeah, fucking asshole.
Fucking buy this restaurant.
You call this a Chardonnay?
Shit was crazy.
It's funny.
Yeah, man. So, but yeah, to go back to your point though, I agree. A Chardonnay with the nice Connecticut actually would pair nicely. I do.
So you can get crazy with it. Like, it's fun. Yeah. Cigars are no different than eating and drinking. You can pair things and like you can really get crazy with things. You can plan your whole damn day out based around stuff. You can pair things with coffees. You can pair things with teas. You can pair things with regular soft drinks. It just depends how you want it, because not everybody drinks alcohol either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we have a lot of cigar smokers out there that don't drink alcohol, and they pair them with other juices and sparkling waters and things of that nature. So it's up to you.
Natural juices and berries.
Yeah, basically.
All right, so let's get into our first topic. Past sport greats that went to HBCUs. So here's the thing. I knew a few. I'm sure you guys, just like me, just looked into, who of our known sports legends went to HBCUs. And I only wrote down 8 names. But, and majority of them I knew. But there was a couple. I was like,
there was somebody I didn't know.
Surprised.
There was one that I was embarrassed. I'm like, shit, I didn't know that.
Wait, so we got to get to that.
I was about to say, so who was that?
Yeah, so who's that?
Walter Payton.
Oh, you didn't know that one?
I did not know.
I knew that one.
And I was a huge Walter Payton fan.
I knew that one.
No idea, bro.
In your defense,
and you got to remember, I was like 7,
in
8.
his prime, you were 7 years old.
7, 8 years old. Obviously, I didn't know.
That's
but
true,
man,
too.
that was crazy.
Yeah.
Jackson State.
Yep.
Ironic.
So
there's a circle of them that went to a small knit. Yeah, it was like a crew of schools that were getting most of these guys. And
one of his teammates, Richard Dent, went to Black College also.
So here's the thing.
Only on the list, seeing it.
So yeah, Dent, I didn't know about that either. So, but here's the irony though. So it's like if you look at most of the list, the people I came up with, overwhelming majority football players. Yeah. But a majority of them though, it's like it was a thing back in the day, and then it stopped being a thing. Like once, and it stopped being a thing. Yeah. Once what came into play.
Money.
Exactly.
Money changed it all.
Money.
Exactly. So the first black quarterback to ever win the Super Bowl in the NFL, Doug Williams.
He went to Grambling.
Yep.
HBCU. Michael Strahan. HBCU.
Yeah.
Jerry Rice. HBCU. But once again, these dudes were playing in the 80s, you know what I'm saying? In the 70s, in terms of like when they went to college.
Yeah.
So it's like the amount of riches and like retardedly like mounds of cash being poured into universities wasn't a thing back in the day.
The Super Bowl wasn't making billions of dollars back in the 80s.
It wasn't.
Like it is now. So yeah.
No, but it was a different narrative that was getting pressed during that time. You know, like So for me personally, growing up where I grew up, college was barely even spoke about, let alone an HBCU.
Exactly.
The only reason why people spoke about colleges was because of the notoriety of some of the famous ones.
Yeah.
The Dukes, the Michigans. And you learned about them through, obviously, following sports.
I mean, we're basketball fans, so for us, it's like St. John's and Georgetown.
Same thing.
The Big East. You know what I'm saying? Villanova, Providence.
Syracuse.
Correct. Not Providence. What was it called? Was it Providence? Providence.
Yeah. Now, surprisingly, I was a huge college basketball fan during that time, too. It was different. The game was different. College basketball was different. You know, and I was also big into trading cards. And they used to make college cards, too.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah, they did.
I forgot about that.
Yes, they did.
Holy shit.
That's how, during that time, I knew where everybody went because I was such a collector.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I had more NBA cards than college, but I had a few college. Wow.
Now, the sad thing is,
that in years.
Yeah, so you're talking about, you know, with the age and stuff before, in fairness to Malik, you know, us growing up when we did, they didn't broadcast a lot of the stuff when it came to HBCUs.
No.
Yo, outside of the Power 10 colleges, you barely even heard about college.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, my experience with learning about HBCUs, as funny as it may sound, really was when I was watching The Cosby Show or A Different World.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's just being dead ass real.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If you think about it, that was the only big channel that was out there as an outlet for.
So us being
hence that shirt.
Yeah,
correct.
Us being Bronx kids, there are no HBCUs that I can think of other than a handful that are past the Mason-Dixon line.
Mm-hmm.
Overwhelming majority of them are in the South. And then the furthest north is Delaware State, I think. So it's like, they're not in our region. Mm-hmm. They're not in New York, they're not in Jersey, they're not in the tri-state area. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, you hear about like the premise of it, but it didn't really permeate the culture in New York like it did if you grew up in Atlanta, or if you grew up in Texas, or if you grew up in
that was the thing,
Charlotte, North Carolina. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So it's and granted, like, I don't know about you guys, like, my parents weren't like, oh, let's go away to college. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't know if they had even the opportunity to do that. Like, my pops went to Bronx Community College. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
So it's like, and my mother went to Hunter.
Those are the only colleges I knew, to be honest with you. Yeah. Hunter, John Jay, Lehman. Fordham University was like the whoa.
Yeah, like, whoa. Fordham.
University.
Like, exactly.
University.
Like, okay, Mr. Big Shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Fordham over here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I didn't know anybody who went to Fordham, but I'm saying, like, when you heard about it, it's like, oh, that's big time. Like, you went to Fordham.
My experience was obviously a little different, just, you know, growing up in sports and just being basically a freaking jock. But to be honest, everything was about college when I was a kid because that was the goal.
The end goal.
Playing basketball. The end goal was to get a scholarship to college.
No,
so I knew about all colleges.
No. But here's the thing, though. The colleges you knew about had basketball programs.
Yeah, it was all about
So that's what I
basketball.
was saying. It goes back to that Power 10.
That's my point.
Outside of that, there was nothing else.
But to be honest, I actually was just infatuated with college. Just period. Like sport. Obviously, yeah, they all had sports programs.
Yeah.
I used to follow HBCU basketball programs.
Oh, really?
Because we'll get into that a little later. But that was one thing. I was just like, listen, if I can't go to one of these big colleges, I want to go to HBCU. So I used to follow Howard and Hampton and Alabama State, Texas Southern, all those schools. Like I actually used to follow them. But yeah, I guess my experience was just a little different. Like everything was about college. So I barely even watched NBA at that time. I was literally just watching college because it was that dream to like. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm playing every day. That's why I'm up every morning shooting is to get that college scholarship. Because again, similar to you guys, my parents didn't really go to any big college. I think my mother went to Westchester Community. My dad did like 1 year at Hofstra, and then that was about it. So you know what I mean? Like we didn't have that in my household. I didn't grow up around a whole bunch of college educated people. So my goal was I got to make it to freaking college.
Yeah, I get it.
What I'm saying?
And basketball was
and basketball was the way, obviously. Yeah.
Shit. Like neither one of my parents went to college at all, so college wasn't a thing for me. And let alone just celebrating athletes the way, when it came down to like watching the NFL, translating for me, because I was always a big football fan. You only known the guys. You would know about the guys that went to the big programs. You definitely never heard about an HBCU. For my time, I would sit there and say, and I don't know if you guys know this, the most recent successful athlete in the NFL that went to an HBCU was Steve McNair.
Yeah, Aaron McNair. He was on the list too. Yeah,
he went to, was it Alcorn State?
Yep, Alcorn State. Yep.
You know what I mean? To see him go third in the Heisman and actually be a very prominent player in the NFL.
Yeah, no, he did his thing in the NFL.
You know what I mean?
Forget about him. Aaron McNair.
Don't forget about Shannon Sharp.
Shannon Sharp's on. They went to Savannah State.
Savannah State, yeah.
But I was just saying, just like, just the relations. Like, look at, we're talking about.
He was a star. Just being like that, like he was a star basically at that point.
Especially at a quarterback.
I was about to say.
Yeah, and a quarterback. Yeah.
So not to take anything away from Shannon Sharp.
Yeah, he's Hall of Famer, but
Hall of Famer, tight end, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's no secret that there's a distinction between being a football player and being a quarterback. Yeah. And
quarterback is like a brand in itself.
Exactly, and because of that distinction, which is why we didn't really get the opportunities to become it, because now you are pretty much the CEO of that company on the field. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Whereas everybody else is kind of like your employees. Yeah. So, like I said, not taking anything away from Shannon Sharp, but McNair being not only a successful black quarterback in the NFL, but a black quarterback who went to an HBCU. And here's the thing about that. I remember watching Steve McNair. Mm-hmm. I don't remember there being anything about him going to an HBCU.
That's what I'm saying.
At all.
That's where I'm getting at with that. Yep. Where it's like, here goes a more up-to-date guy that we could relate to, that we've all watched play, and you've seen his career develop in front of your eyes. And unless
he went to a Super Bowl, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We're 1 yard away from beating the Rams.
He was on that team to 1 yard.
The greatest show on turf.
Yeah.
You know? Yep. That was a really big deal.
It was a huge deal.
You know what I mean? And unless you knew the schools, there was no one ever talking and bigging up where he's come from and how he's got from. Because most of those guys back in the day, you went to power schools. Still till today. Yeah. But nowadays, the NFL especially knows that you draft guys, the meat and potato, the guys are drafted in the middle rounds. Yeah. And they come from every kind of college, no matter where.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The power guys, the big schools, the big guys, they usually don't come from, HBCUs. Yeah. So seeing that McNair did, and unless you knew the school itself, you would never know that it was an HBCU.
And correct me if I'm wrong. At that point when he went to the Super Bowl, it was still only Doug Williams that had won a Super Bowl as a black quarterback, right? Yeah. At that point in time.
Yeah. Yes.
So potentially we had another. I'm not even talking about the aftermath or the outcome, but leading up to the game, you had a black quarterback in the Super Bowl.
Big storyline.
Potentially the second black quarterback to win a Super Bowl of all time, and both of them went to HBCUs, and there was nothing about that.
That's exactly where I'm going. It was something that was just not spoken about.
And you know, and
that should have been a huge storyline.
For anybody that watches sports, there is a 2-week gap between the conference championships and the NFL. Leading up to the NFL, there are so many stories that ESPN does, and in every sports outlet, about the players that are playing in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl is it's bigger than just sports. It's like a national holiday, almost a Super Bowl, right? So, looking back on it, the fact that you have another black quarterback and there was no HBCU stories, like the first one who won went to Grambling. This one went to Alcorn State, both HBCUs. And nothing about the history.
And they might have done it, but it might have been done in passing. Like how you said the first part of that. Two black quarterbacks, both came from HBCUs. Look where we're at now. On to the next story. I don't think there was any elaborate.
If I remember, they didn't even really bring up the whole fact that Doug Williams went to HBCU.
Not until
Steve McNair was in the Super Bowl, and then they had this whole story on Doug Williams. I'm like, at that time, I didn't really. I knew, but I forgot.
Once again, we were young.
We were young.
We were like 10 years old.
Yeah.
But they didn't even bring that up until the second one came. So Doug Williams didn't even really get his props at the time.
And got cut the next year, by the way.
Exactly.
Yes, he did.
His career was basically over after that, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
No, that was it.
You didn't hear from him after that. Damn shame.
That was it, man. So what other guys you got on your list that were standouts?
I have a standout that so you know I'm a tennis fan, right? I do not play tennis. I grew up playing tennis. Very expensive sport. Didn't have the money for it. Wasn't even interested in it until like maybe 10 years ago. So the name I'm about to mention may not be a name that everybody knows. You have to kind of know tennis to know this name, or just be into black history from a sports angle. Have you ever heard the name Althea Gibson?
Yeah. No, I have.
So Althea Gibson is the first black woman to ever win Wimbledon.
Wimbledon, that's right.
She went to Florida A&M.
Wow.
HBCU. Feel really ashamed that I just fucked that up, considering I'm the one person that went to the HBCU.
That's all right, but it was funny. Like, I didn't even know that she went there.
So I didn't know that either. So literally, like reading up on this particular topic for this particular episode.
That's the crazy part. How you
and I watch tennis.
But it's not that, Conway. It's the point that they basically wash away history.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? Like, they don't even bring it. They don't even. You have to dive deep to find out this information in today's era. You know what I mean? It's not something that's openly spoken about.
They don't want to hide our history. They don't want us to shine.
But and the funny thing is, it's like it's not like it's a quote unquote bootleg school. Like, these are legit.
No, they are
colleges and universities, and you have people who are high execs in Fortune 500 companies that went to these schools. I could see if like every HBCU was like a community college. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like a little 2-year thing where there's like a bunch of it's like 500 people that go there, and it's just like, we don't really take these schools serious. Like, these are colleges and universities, and it just doesn't get the recognition that I think it deserves. But so to answer your question, Althea Gibson was the 1, and then 1A, and then 1B was, and I knew this, but I had forgotten it. Earl of Pearl Monroe.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Winston-Salem. It's a smaller HBCU.
Oh, okay. I know. I'm familiar with the college as well. I just didn't know he went there.
Yeah, Earl of Pearl Monroe.
Holy shit. Okay.
And for those who are
especially Knick fans
young to know who Earl of Pearl Monroe is, Google him. Yeah. They used to call him Black Jesus. Yes. Actually, no. Correction. And I didn't know this until the movie He Got Game. So he's out of Philly. They didn't call him Black Jesus so he got his nickname from the playground.
Yeah,
playing. All right. So his nickname wasn't Black Jesus. His nickname was just Jesus. And then the press got a hold of it and just was like, "Oh, Black Jesus." Yeah. And it just was like, nah.
We never said that first part.
Because it's redundant.
It is.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so then, and Denzel had mentioned that in the movie He Got Game. So I didn't know that until then, because I remember. So once again, we're too young to have seen Earl of Pearl play. I've seen highlights.
Yeah, the highlights.
And if any of your pops was into basketball, you heard the name Earl of Pearl Monroe. Sure. Like he had the spin moves, he had the handle, and he just was like smooth, like when he was on the court.
He was.
You know what I'm saying? But another brother that went to, or another
That's
athlete,
crazy.
I should say, that went to an HBCU.
Shouts out to him. I met him before. Really good, really nice guy.
A word?
Yeah.
Where'd you meet him?
Somewhere in high school. Oh, at a function. It was like for cancer, some cancer function. He was the speaker, and then afterwards he came over and shook our hands, spoke to everybody. Real cool guy, real cool dude.
The last time the Knicks won a title.
It's a damn shame. All right, let's not mess up the mood.
Yeah. Let's not do that.
It happens though, man. And
That's probably E calling right now to talk about
the Knicks, yeah.
I was thinking of something when we were getting ready for this, and you had asked, I just said how I was very into colleges, in high school. Who was the main, when I thought of HBCUs, what first thing that came to mind? Oh, not first, it was three things that came to mind. First thing, like you just said, well, a lot of people don't know, great education. Like I really grew up, I'm like, shit, if I go to HBCU, I'm gonna get a great education. Like I really felt that way, and I knew that. The other thing was frats and sororities.
Yeah. Fraternity sorority. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And beautiful women.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what I thought of when I heard with HBCUs.
Yeah, man.
It's just a shame not enough, people from just not just from the ghetto, but just young black men and women just don't think about going to HBCUs.
Especially from the Northeast.
Yeah, definitely.
And just to kind of give like a little insight, us personally, as we progress through this, business life that we were in, want to eventually give back, and part of our goal is to put as much spotlight on HBCUs as possible.
Sure.
And it warms our hearts just to see what's going on right now with the spotlight being put on it because of athletics. Now, would it have been any better if it was academics? Who knows? But the point is, there's a spotlight on it right now. And it's just a beautiful thing because, like I said, all these great athletes we're talking about, Earl the Pearl, Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, Doug Williams, this was all in the 70s. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where you could be somebody who could make it to that professional level and not feel a certain type of way going to an HBCU because your talent would speak. It wasn't all these boosters and AAU people and like with a pipeline that goes like, okay, well, you go to Duke, you go to Kentucky, you go to Kansas, you go to North Carolina, you're guaranteed a spot in the league, almost. At least a shot. But if you go to an HBCU, you're gonna ruin your chances, and that's what it basically was.
And when it comes to basketball, that's what it is actually.
Well, it's because
if you
there's
notice
no
all these names we've been saying is football. We just named only one basketball player. That's always been the thought process when it came to basketball.
Well, it's because there's no exposure.
Yeah.
There has been
Not
no
at all.
exposure for years when it came to that national stage.
Charles Oakley, another one, by the way.
Oh yeah, Virginia Union.
Yeah.
So these guys, they had to play where they're going to get recognized.
Ben Wallace.
That's right.
About
Ben
that
Wallace,
one.
another one.
Yeah.
So,
But if you noticed, these like the basketball, other than Earl Pro, from Ben Wallace and Charles Oakley, they were workhorses.
Yeah.
They had to work extra hard.
that was their role too on the team.
I don't even think any of them got drafted. I think most of them were freaking walk-ons. I don't even know if any of them got drafted.
I don't know about Charles Oakley. I know Ben Wallace was
did.
a walk-on. He did not get drafted.
Yeah.
He was hey, let me try out on the team, and I'm gonna outwork everybody, out rebound everybody. Because Ben Wallace was only 6'9".
Yeah.
Yeah, he played like he was 8 foot.
He's a huge guy, but he wasn't a 7-footer. Yeah.
Ben Wallace, in terms of, I always get on Dwight Howard. In terms of like rebounds and shot blocking or whatever, is probably a good 3 or 4 inches shorter than Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, Ben Wallace was a strong individual. He was a beast, diesel dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just brolic as all hell. But he played bigger than his size.
Yeah, it's just sad that the basketball doesn't.
Because it's the stage, though.
Yeah,
the stage. Nobody was watching any of that. If you didn't play for Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, like the UNLV back in the 90s was big with basketball as well, too.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Like the Running Rebels,
Shark.
You had to play for teams that were going to get the recognition for whatever particular sport you were playing. And basketball was a very small pool. Very small pool that was getting on the national stage.
But the thing is, though, 90-something% of the league was black.
But that goes to the point of where they channeled you to go to where the money was and where the limelight was and where they wanted you to go.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's not until recent where individuals are starting to sit back and say, hey, with social media and where things are today, it don't matter where I go, I'm going to get seen. Because I'm going to go wherever here, I'm going to score 60. After I do that 3 times in a row, I'm going to be on ESPN. They're going to talk about me.
I mean, look at Steph.
Like we were talking about it, I think the other night, yesterday or the night before, we were talking about with the high school kids. We were talking like with Bronny and was it Wagner's son?
Wagner, DJ Wagner.
And it's like, yo, imagine if all these kids did go together to one team. And I was telling you it'd be unfair, but to the point is,
like what the Fab Five did.
So I was just about to say, that's what I told him when we were talking about. I said, you know what's going to take for basketball? It's going to have to be a Fab Five goes to a school.
HBCU.
Or HBCU, like all 5-star recruits going to have to go to one HBCU. The first year, obviously, they're not going to get as much recognition, but then that second and third year, the big schools are going to be like, you know what? They think they're good. We want to play them.
Let's put them on the schedule.
Let's put them on the schedule. Let's put them on ESPN, and then that's going to give them their recognition.
The problem with that is, after that first year, if they're any good, they're not going to be there. That's why the Fab Five is never going to happen.
Well,
again.
no, not really.
Well,
Because they're in HBCU, so they're not going to the NBA. Because in the NBA, still going to think, oh, you guys played in that little weak conference. You're not. We need to see you play against real competition.
They'll still make them go to the D League, the G League, and all that. But I will say where it's a little different though. Reason why they might stay Conway, the future is now. These NIL deals and stuff, like I told you, with social media.
Yeah, they can make money now.
I can maximize my opportunity.
They don't need to rush now. They can make money.
How many stars have donned the Michigan uniform? You could name so many. You've worn it. But now if I went to pick any small school you want, I can be remembered. I can make this jersey remembered.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
For forever now.
Yeah.
That's my jersey.
High school kids making $1 million, $2 million off of these.
Yo, quick shout out, Ed O'Bannon. He kind of started the whole thing.
He opened it up. He opened it up for them, man.
It took years, and he knew whatever he was doing, he was not going to reap the benefits of it necessarily.
But
personally.
he opened the door.
He opened the door for other people.
Yeah. Shout out to Ed O'Bannon, man. UCLA. Him and his brother.
UCLA. O'Bannon brothers.
Yeah.
O'Bannon brothers.
Yeah, Charlie O'Bannon. Yeah.
They didn't quite make it in the NBA, but it's all right. He did
it's
something.
All good.
He did something good.
But listen, that wasn't his path.
He had a couple years on the Nets. He did okay.
Charlie his path. It wasn't his path. His path was to do what he did now.
Exactly.
You know. So, but think about it though. Truth be told, they would do very well Fab Five. Because at some point in time, like I said, ESPN's got to talk about it.
Yeah.
You guys are winning 90-26.
Yeah, that's what's going to bring the recognition.
Like
who's these kids? And then they're going to find, they got 5-star recruits there.
Well, they'll know because it's going to be limelight now. Like if LeBron James' son went to fucking an HBCU, everyone's going to know what school that is.
And then the big schools are going to want to prove their point that they're not that good, and they're going to play them. And then they're going to put them on the big stage.
And then when they win,
that's when it's going to start.
That's the problem right there. For the other schools, and that's when the floodgates open up for HBCUs.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you start seeing more guys now. I might not have to travel as far away from home now.
Yeah, I can stay close to my family.
Stay close to the home.
And I'm making money.
And I'm getting paid. And like I said, I make this jersey famous now. How many guys have worn North Carolina? Like we can keep going down, but how many guys have worn, you know what I mean?
And made money off of it.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So if these guys are thinking that way, that's, could be the first of first, the one of one.
It's nobody wants to be the first usually, but it's gonna take that one special person to be like, you know what, man, fuck it, let's do it.
That's because we live in the era of following and copying.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other thing. And one thing we know here at Smoking Ashes is about following and copying, because we're not gonna mention any names, and we're not. But we see y'all. We see you. It's all good though. It's all love. It's all it is. I mean, like, imitation is the greatest form of flattery.
Yeah. After a while, it gets frustrating. After a while, though.
You know what? I was frustrated at first, man. But I'm like, you know what? Y'all can keep going.
Well, the thing is because we don't sit and worry about things, and it's about you worrying about what's happening, how people are following trends.
Because here's the thing: if you're always following like what the other person is doing, you're always going to be in that position. Because we're worried about innovating, and they're worried about following.
So innovators create imitators.
Imitate. Yeah. Keep going. And on that note, we got to get into our segment. This can't be life. And we're going to talk about these people, and I use the term people loosely, who have been phoning in bomb threats to HBCUs.
Damn shame.
Yeah. We'll be right back on the other side of this break.
It's the main event.
It's the SNA Live Podcast, and it's time for our newest segment. This can't be life, where we bring to light the most dim-witted ish that's going on in the news today.
And we're back with our segment, This Can't Be Life. But before we get into it, we got to circle back to our cigar experience and what we're enjoying about the sticks we're smoking, what we're not feeling, and just give us, give y'all our honest opinion, our honest feedback. We're back here, season 3, episode 4, Black to the Future, part 2. And Leek, since GM started off with his experience, we're gonna let you start it off with how you enjoying the nutty, creamy stick that you have.
No, I'm gonna say I'm enjoying the flavors and the nuances. I read the review before, and the one thing it did say is that this is definitely a full flavored cigar. So I'm definitely, like you said, the creaminess, the nuttiness, a little spice, but it's not too much. You know that spice that just kind of complements everything else?
Yeah.
Perfect. The only drawback I would say is the construction is, I don't know if you guys have been noticing, I've had to keep touching it up.
Yeah.
A lot. I hate that because it stops me from enjoying. I got to keep sitting there because I don't want ash all over my damn pants. But other than that, I'm enjoying this. Construction could be a little bit better, but really good cigar. Definitely worth the $20 or $22. This is here. What do we sell it for?
25.
25. Yeah. Definitely a good cigar. What about you, Rob?
So again, I'm a huge fan of the Eastern Standard from Caldwell. This the Midnight Express. First time I'm smoking it. I'm pleased as I expected to be with the Caldwell release. This particular cigar is traditional. Actually, it has the finishes of a traditional Dominican cigar.
Okay.
The pepper is not on the forefront; it's on the very back end, and it's very subtle.
Okay.
And you could taste that physically on the palate. And then when you do the retrohale, what's crazy is you pick up the pepper on the palate, but the retrohale doesn't contain any of the pepper.
Really?
So you're not really feeling it.
Huh.
It's just crazy. It's playing this weird game where I'm over here tasting things that I'm expecting to feel on the retrohale, and it just didn't happen.
Gotcha.
And that's pretty cool for me because I like the experiences where I can retrohale through a cigar and this is more recent. I've done this recently. If I can retrohale on the cigar 5, 6 to 10 times throughout the experience, I really got to enjoy that cigar thoroughly because I could do that throughout all the process of the third experiment, through each third. But it allows me to pick up on all the flavor nuances through the changes. Sometimes some cigars are too strong, and it doesn't allow you to do it because it's like, you know what, I can't do too many more of those. Yeah, because you feel it. But this one has a lot of the earthiness on this is amazing. Again, I am a big fan when a Dominican cigar though doesn't dry out the palate. Because it's
over peppery.
It was so crazy. I had a conversation last night with Moxie based off of just Dominican cigars.
Mox, what up?
Yeah, we were talking about how that some Dominican tobacco could really dry your palate out.
Yeah, man.
On top of that, we're also drinking wine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I haven't been drinking too much because I want to experience. Towards the end, I'll start drinking.
Even though it's not
wine is going to make it even more. It's going to dry it out even more.
It can, not this particular blend, but a drier wine definitely would dry out with a fucking Dominican cigar. Yeah. So for me though, this cigar has gone totally left than what I anticipated, and it smokes fantastic. The body on it is great. The flavor on it is great. The construction is. I have a little bit of the ash problem too, but every tobacco burns different. I can't hold it to it. Overall, great experience. If you guys ever want to try it, if you haven't, it's definitely worthwhile picking up and trying. How about you, Conway?
So before I get into the experience I'm having with Jacob's Ladder, I just have to talk about the Midnight Express real quick. So we had got it in, I think, last summer. And a friend of mine that went to Howard as well, Charles Coleman, shout out Charles, what's up? He had smoked it, and he was like, yo, Conway, come here, give me 1 second. I said, what's up? He's like, yo, have you had this yet? I said, nah, we just got it in. I haven't experienced it yet, but it's by the same people that make the Eastern Standard, and I love the Eastern Standard. He was like, yo, this shit is fire. He's like, I like it even more than the Eastern Standard. I was like, really? I was like, oh, okay, I gotta try this. Now, I don't know if it's because he already put it in my head that he liked it more than the Eastern Standard.
That happens sometimes.
So my expectation level was
think
probably
so.
thrown off. I wasn't really feeling it. It wasn't a bad experience, but it wasn't the, oh my God, this shit is crazy experience.
Got you.
Which is what I got from the Eastern Standard. The first time I smoked the Eastern Standard, the next 2 to 3 weeks, when somebody would be like, hey, do you have something new for me? I was like, yep, I do. Try this shit. And don't just try it. Remember what it is and come back to me and let me know how you
enjoyed it.
Everybody fucking loved it. Now, I've recommended the Midnight Express as well. Never had a person that had a bad experience with it, but I didn't hype it up. I made sure not to hype it up. All I said was, this is for the same people that made the Eastern Standard. Let me know what you think about it. They all liked it. And I just can't separate how much it was hyped up before I smoked it from the experience. So I probably, now it's been some time since I've smoked it. So I purposely did that because I want to circle back to it. Because now I don't have that fresh in my head and I want to see what the experience is like.
I will tell you this, smoking this cigar with a red blend, it must be the Araparaika Maduro. It's actually sweet on a retrohale right now.
Okay.
Like I had taken a little bit of the wine, I let that clean, I did a retro on it, and like you can taste the sweetness of the Maduro. And people might laugh when you hear about it because a lot of people have a misconception with
Dominican cigars
in general, but just the leaves in general. So people think always automatically Maduro, it's dark, it means it's strong. Yeah. That's not a true. That's a
and the flip side. Oh, it's a Connecticut wrapper, so
it's
that means
light.
It's light. Like not all the time.
Total myth.
Yeah, it's all about the binder and the filler.
Correct.
It's not just the leaf.
If you want to break this down on a food standpoint, think of plantains. Most of our cultures know what plantains are. Green banana, the green one, the plantain, it's not ripe. Yeah, I mean, usually used, as a fried plantain with salt and stuff. Yeah. Maduro, the sweet ones, sweet plantains, give a different vibe. So you can see the same standard goes for judging it on a scale of bananas. Yeah. The Maduro is more sweet. The leaf is sweeter. You know what I mean? What makes the cigar stronger is the nicotine in it. And you really can't put a sticker on it when it comes to cigars.
You cannot.
You're not gonna know what it is and what, but you just have to know. But
until you smoke it.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So Jacob's Ladder, definitely enjoying it. The nuances are it's not overly flavorful. It's not. It's very, very subtle. But when you pick up on the subtleties, definitely enjoyable experience.
Getting earthy. You get earthy.
So it's
I have a flip.
The flavor profile of this is supposed to be molasses with toasted spices. So molasses obviously is sweet. It's not overly sweet. It's and I pick it up a little on the draw, but you can pick it up a little bit more on the retrohale. Okay. And as I'm smoking it, it started off a little bit more flavorful, and as it's opening up, it's usually the reverse, right? Usually it takes a little while to open up to get to all the flavors. I think the flavor was a little bit hitting more on the first few draws, and as I'm smoking it a little longer, it's getting a little bit more subtle, but definitely a smooth smoke. Okay. Very, very smooth. Definitely feeling
what about the strength.
I would say it's a medium to full.
Yeah,
it's a medium to full. But you know what I've realized? My palate has gotten so corrupted because I love strong cigars. Yeah. Actually, I shouldn't say. I love a medium to full cigar. It's very difficult for me to enjoy a light cigar. So even a medium to full for me is just, to me, a regular cigar because that's the range that I tend to smoke. If I want to go a little bit stronger, I'll do like the El Borracho or something like that. But the medium to full, that's my lane. So it's the perfect balance of that medium to full. It's not overly strong. It's not like a true medium. It's right in that middle. So flavor notes are good. It's a smooth smoke. Construction is good. I haven't been, sitting here tapping the thing the whole time. And yeah. Actually, I have to recommend this to Damon was here the other day, and he was like, "Yo, I had the leaf and I had the the Superfly. Can you recommend something like within that? Now this is not as flavorful as the Superfly, but it is within that lane.
Got you.
Because I gave him the Illusion Privé.
Okay.
And I forgot to circle back to him and see if he
figure
liked it. Yeah, I'll go back to him. But next time I'm gonna suggest this.
By the way, ever since I just did my little review, this flavors is freaking intensifying right now. This is a flavor bomb right now. I'm freaking really enjoying it.
So the cigar is, again, it's an aged cigar. So you know,
it's opening up right now.
I'm curious to see, because I'm about halfway down. I'm curious to see like what the last third is like. Right, you was about to say something though.
So how you had the flip feeling with the Midnight Express, I had the similar feeling towards the Jacob's Ladder. For me, it's like watching an okay movie that you tried to find a real reason why you could say you liked it.
Yeah,
that's how I found myself with that cigar.
Gotcha.
And you kind of hit on all the reasons why I felt that way. Like I felt like I was looking and searching for flavor.
The notes, yeah.
And it was there, but it was very subtle.
Yeah.
And I got a misconception from it where I thought it would be a little bit more of a, upfront.
The Lancero is that one. You gotta try the Lancero.
It'll definitely change the experience just because
it's a whole different experience.
Yeah. You know, I'm not a big Lancero dude, but I'll try.
It'll put you on your ass too
if you sleep on it.
Yeah, man.
All right, so we gotta get to our segment, because our guest is waiting for us on the other side of this for topic number 2. So this can't be life. So we're profiling, I shouldn't say profiling, we're putting on blast.
Yes, no profile.
These assholes who have been calling in bomb threats. So there's 6 schools that bomb threats have been made to within the past few hours. Albany State, Bethune-Cookman, Bowie State, where our boy Derek went to.
Yes, sir.
Delaware State, Howard, my alma mater, and Southern University.
Bethune-Cookman, my man Saeed, what up? He went there.
So, Ryan, you had touched on this during the first topic about how now these athletes are starting to go to the HBCUs and the money's going to start to follow.
They're upset. They're salty.
And when the money starts to follow, the type of people that make these bomb threats, for whatever reason, because I feel like there's enough, this country has so much fucking money. They automatically equate money going into those schools as money coming out of their pocket.
Yeah, like they're losing something.
And it's like, no, it isn't. Like, one doesn't necessarily have to equate the other.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So
no, it doesn't.
And it's just fear.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's them trying to make these schools seem dangerous, seem like it's a place that's not safe, not comfortable for you to go to try to slow up the process.
So that we'll stop going, so that the phenomenon that's happening slows down or just stops completely.
Correct.
But guess what?
It ain't happening.
We've been threatened in this country with dudes rolling up on horseback with shotguns and burning crosses, and we still persevered.
Sir.
We've been threatened with violence and dogs sicked on us and water hoses, and we still persevered. We've been threatened when they burned down Black Wall Street, and we still persevered. And with this shit, we're still gonna keep coming, and still shining like our brilliant, beautiful, wonderful selves. So make the phone calls. Y'all ain't about to do shit. Y'all not really about that life. You know what I'm saying? Because
what you're doing is also you're wasting just taxpayer money even more.
But here's the thing.
All these progressive people care so much about the budgets and where things go. That false phone call also is very expensive for your local city and town, wherever these schools are located at.
Oh, no, it's not even the cities of town. The feds got called in.
You see? So it's just
the feds got called in. Because this is a coordinated effort.
Well, sure it is. It didn't just all happen at the same time.
Because all the schools that I mentioned are in 5 different states and in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So it's not as if it's like, a collection of schools within Florida and like a bunch of,
well, you could locate it and say it's one guy doing this whole thing.
Exactly. This is a coordinated effort. That's why the feds got involved. So y'all are probably not the most intelligent of people, and this is not exactly Mensa members making these phone calls. Y'all are gonna fuck up and y'all gonna get caught, and guess what's gonna happen? Because of the mass incarceration in this country. Y'all about to get locked up and put into the very place where it's pretty much all black and brown people. So have fun. Have fun.
That's a good point. That's a real good one.
Oh, man. All right. Not going to waste any more time on these assholes. So, on the other side of the break, we have our second topic. We're going to be talking about the future of HBCUs in sports, being joined by our esteemed guest, Mr. David Turner, former scout for the NFL.
And he's got other accolades. He'll talk a little bit about himself.
Yeah, we'll let that man speak on it.
Awesome. Be right back.
It's time to show some love to Marvelous Water, Super Antioxidant Alkaline Water, our official hydration sponsor for Season 3 of the SNA Live Podcast.
And we're back. Black to the Future Part 2, Season 3, Episode 4. We're talking about the future of HBCUs in sports, and we have with us our illustrious guest, Mr. David Turner.
First time for that one. The applause is great, but well warranted, brother.
So I
thank you all for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So I said in the intro that you were a former NFL scout, but I know that's just one of many things that you have done within the sports realm. So I'm going to let you speak on it.
I appreciate it. Now, I've been 18, 19 years basically in the industry. Started with the Miami Dolphins back in 2002 as an intern, and then worked my way up with the New York Giants, Oakland Raiders, and the San Francisco 49ers, Carolina Panthers. I've also been in Arena League, where I won 3 straight championships with the Arizona Rattlers, and then up in the Canadian League and UFL as well. So I'm a well-traveled vet, scout, and executive in the NFL world. I started Maverick Sports Consulting back in 2015 to help young men getting ready for the interview process at the NFL Combine. I've had clients such as Giovanni Bernard, Odell Beckham Jr., Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon, Dante Fowler, some of the really top Marcus Peters, top players that come through my training to learn how to change their mindset from being a student athlete into a professional player and a professional in general. So I've done all that, and then it's been a passion of mine since I worked with Willie Brown to highlight more of the HBCU players and players that come out of HBCU schools. And I didn't know how until I ran into Ulyss Payne about a year and a half ago now. And Ulyss is an executive and a brand ambassador and board member of many companies, and he was like, hey, let's do this. Pull off an HBCU combine that's never happened before for the football players, and we were able to take care of it last year and had a great event down at UAB. They offered us their field and facilities the day after their pro day, and it was all set up for their pro day, and we just were able to come in the next day and knock it out, and had a great turnout with the players, great response by the NFL teams and by CFL teams. So it was a huge success. We're excited to hopefully continue it starting again next year.
Very, very cool, and very impressive resume, by the way. Very impressive. So quick question. What prompted you to look at HBCUs as opposed to, the powerhouses of college football, like the Alabamas and the Auburns and the Clemsons and the Notre Dames?
Well, like I alluded to a little bit in my intro there, I was fortunate to work at the Oakland Raiders with Willie Brown, one of the Grambling all-time greats that ever come out of HBCUs. And my personal connection to him, and then guys like Jackie Slater, who were coaches there at the HBCUs.
LA Rams, right? Lineman for the Rams, right?
Well, yeah, and then he was a coach up at the Raiders with us, and a true friend of mine, a great guy. So I had connection to these men, and they talked to me about the HBCUs as a young scout and their passion for those programs, and how Al Davis, in the 60s and 70s was in there scouting these players before a lot of other people went into the HBCU scouting those areas. And now a lot of PWIs have stolen a great deal of players away from HBCUs, but there's still some great talent in that level. And they just don't get highlighted. The PWIs in the local areas, many of the HBCUs are down in the Southeast Conference where the ACC and the SEC dominate the revenue dollars and everything else. So for me, I'm like, it's just about highlighting the players, getting them their attention that they work hard for. And, when I got into being my own director of the UFL and then in arena football, I often went shopping in HBCU places because I knew the hardworking character of the players that played there. And, they were often maybe just a titch slower or maybe an inch shorter, but they still had skill and they had a lot of ability. So, always made sure to shop at those places when I was trying to, sign players and give them, as much exposure in the professional ranks as I could. And I found some great ones out of there for us. And then, again, I ran into Euless by chance. His cousin, who's a coach at Bethune-Cookman, and I were at a combine together. And I was talking about my passion for HBCUs. And he was like, really? And I said, yeah, I've always wanted to do a combine and draw attention to him. And, when he said my cousin might be interested, it was one of those things, guys, where you're like, yeah, okay, you got a cousin that might be interested. Okay.
Yes. Everyone's got that cousin who wants to do something.
Right. And then, so it turned out Euless was really a dude that could make it happen. And so it got down the road, and man, he made it happen. I can't all success to him. Like really, it was really an impressive feat that he took on financially, and the logistics to do everything. It was really an amazing thing, and the contribution from the entire crew that it took to get everybody down there, from Phil and Alex, and all the press that got done and everything is just super amazing.
That's real cool. So, David, I myself went to Howard University, so I know what a PWI is. Malik knew, because I brought the same acronym up the other day. Ryan didn't know, so I'm sure there's a bunch of listeners that don't know what a PWI is. So please explain for the listeners what that acronym stands for.
PWI is predominantly white institutions. So your Ohio States, Notre Dame, your Florida States, Floridas, they're predominantly white institutions which overshadow the HBCUs often when it comes to revenue dollars, attention to sports, athletes, and academics, stuff of that nature. So.
No, it's crazy. He just made a point that I really never even paid attention to before. We just spoke in our first segment on the regions of where most of the HBCUs are located.
Yes.
And when it does come to football and college sports in general, I never really realized how they really are in the shadows of the SEC. Like all these other regions that take over the market, this is exactly where they're located. And that's another reason why it's really hard for them to have ever cracked the market before.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Dave, I got a question for you. When it came to scouting, right? And I know it's regional. Scouts have regions that they're attached to. When it was your time to do your approach, your method of approach, and when you were doing the scouting, like when it came to the HBCUs and stuff, is it something that have you seen it grow more and more in the last few years when it came to the scouts as prior to, maybe 10, 15 years ago? Is it something that you see that's becoming more normalized as compared to the days in the past?
That's a great question, and I've answered similar questions over the course of my journey here. And I'll tell you this, the Southeast Scouts are the most overworked, underpaid scouts. I don't care how much they get paid. Because all the talent that's down there is ridiculously grouped into a conglomerate in which they can't cover it all.
That's true.
Now, the smart NFL teams put 2 and sometimes even 3 scouts in that area to make sure they can cover everybody.
That makes sense.
But when you have an Alabama that has 15 guys on the list, and then you might have, Alabama A&M that has 2, you're going to spend more time at Alabama because you have to. You got to cover all 15 guys, right? And, you just do a drive-by, So the HBCUs aren't allowed to get the necessarily, investment in time that it takes to really learn the stories and the history of the player because of the sheer volume of players that are all throughout the Southeast.
It's crazy.
And so unless an NFL team is willing to commit to extra scouts down there. Now, I talked to John Wooten, and John Wooten and I were in conversations about maybe coming on board his project for me to be an HBCU scout for and then send the reports back up, which is still in the process, but the NFL asked him to hold off for a year because they have some plans and some things that are going on. Just like they asked us to hold off on our combine this year because they have some plans and things that I think they're waiting to announce.
Trying to integrate, probably.
Right. But John Wooten and I are still in conversations about potentially working with him and going through the HBCU schools and writing my reports and then sending them up just to help as an assistant to the NFL teams because, again, it's hard for them to pay extra, 32 teams to pay an extra scout just to cover them, right? But if he paid one scout to cover them, that's something that might be worth their while.
Hey, Dave, this is Malik. I have a question. It's actually a two-part question, but me personally, I follow sports all around, but primarily basketball. I play Division I basketball, so when it comes to the high school and collegiate, I really kind of focus and put a lot of my energy and research into the basketball side. But my question to you is, what do you think, what's your personal opinion on the whole NIL money that's starting to come in now? I've seen on the basketball side, I've seen a lot of these, not even college, primarily high school players are starting to take advantage of this. Are you seeing a lot of football players? I know Deion Sanders' son, I believe, just signed a contract. Gatorade. But are you seeing these football players, whether it be high school or college, taking advantage of this and being included? And I guess the second question is, do you see this as a positive? Or do you think this is something good for the sport? Or is this something maybe you're still a little skeptical about? Or maybe you think it can actually ruin these kids?
I'm going to touch on the basketball for 30 seconds, and then I'll answer your question.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Fair. Yep.
So, I am on a board now. We're going to hold the first ever HBCU basketball pathway project up in the Northeast.
Yes.
And you heard it here.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about.
It will be happening August 6th and 7th. It's for male and female athletes.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
We are drawing the attention to the Pacific Northwest, and we're calling it the Pathway Project, to make a pathway from the Pacific Northwest with basketball talent down to the HBCUs, and we are still in the developmental stages, but it's going to happen. It's 100% in. We've got facilities already booked.
Awesome.
We got everything. This is the first time I'm talking on air about it, but we are stoked about it because it just gives us another avenue to help HBCUs out for sure.
Nice.
You heard it here first on SNA Live.
Thank you for that one, Dave.
Yeah, no worries, guys. I appreciate you bringing up basketball. So I was like, this gives me an opportunity to talk about the Pathway Project. That was a great segue for me. I appreciate it. Mm-hmm. But to go into NILs and all that, it's early in the stages, and I really feel that it's going to get how do I say this politely? It's going to be stepchild in really quick fashion because you see a lot of universities and schools say, you can't use our logos and our facilities and our photos without us getting in on a piece of your project.
Of course, yeah.
Jeez. And that's not what it was meant to be. It was meant to be for these kids to be able to use those images and facility photos and everything for their own benefit. And there's just many organizations out there going, no, the dollars amount start to roll in. We're seeing how these kids are going to get paid, so no, we're not going to do that. We need to get, we need to take our, which again, to me, wasn't the nature of the actual or intention of the actual rules, right? Mm-hmm. And then secondly, with that, I hope the focus from the athletes, they understand that while you're getting a little chump change, on the field, which is perfect, and it's a great way to, supplement incomes, you really need to make sure you're staying clean on the field and you're staying clean on the classroom and you're getting up field on those things because, if you don't have if you're not starting quarterback at Florida State, those deals are going to go away. Mm-hmm. There's matches, and if you're not the starting quarterback at Hampton or wherever, those deals are going to go away. And I see female athletes being able to cash in on this far more than male athletes because, people, the talking heads on the TV only talk about top 5 or 6 players, in sports. And your local marketing gets you some money up from a car dealership, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, whatever that's local. They'll throw you some dollars and they'll throw you some product. But the female athletes with the athletic wear and everything else, and their Instagram followers and stuff,
yeah,
they're blowing.
Paige Beckers just signed a deal the starting point guard for the UConn Lady Huskies. I think it was with Gatorade as well.
Gatorade.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Is like the ladies are going to be able to take more advantage of this because of their ability to get more followers on social media and bring more eyes to the product than a lot of men. The men are going to get some here and there. And, there's a couple good things that are happening, but I also think it opens a slippery slope to absolute tampering and paying off players in inappropriate ways too.
So it could be a mechanism for embezzling and funneling funds, basically.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not going to say there's one institution that right out the back got all their walk-on players scholarship money. Basically, all their walk-on tuition was paid by a local company. And I looked at that and I'm like, that's great. It made all the newspapers and everything, but I'm like, so basically the institution just got all their walk-on players scholarships without calling them scholarships.
Yeah.
Wow. Great for the kids. They don't have to worry about student loans and they're getting all their money paid. But at the same time,
it's a slippery slope there.
This is not what it's intended to be. Yeah.
Exactly.
Those schools are a motherfucker, man. So another question, Dave. So what has been your experience, if at all, with the NFL specifically, their willingness to take the HBCU athlete seriously in comparison to the bigger colleges?
I think it's a joke, an absolute joke. Last year at our combine, there was about 7 players that belonged in NFL camp. And in last year's draft, there was, I think, 3 long snappers drafted. Never in my life in the NFL, never in my life in an NFL draft has
long snappers. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Those guys usually walk on.
And there's punters and all sorts. And my friends were texting me, in the 7th round, we got nobody left on our board. We got nobody. We're digging for people. I'm like, take the HBCU kids. Take this. Now, Keon Smith got signed as an undrafted free agent. A few other with the Atlanta Falcons, and a few others got signed, but they didn't get drafted. And that's where it's a joke. Because last year's draft in the late 6th, 7th round, you could have taken 2 or 3 of these HBCU kids, 100%, and got them drafted, put a little coin in their pocket, and said, "Hey, we're drafting these kids." And they decided to take a long snapper from Michigan or somewhere else. Wow. So, you know what I mean? It's to me, and I'm very passionate about it. And again, I had literally at that combine, I wrote the report for all the kids. I sent them to all the clubs. They knew my opinion on them. People called me and asked me about them. But there was Hunter Register, a 6'3" wide receiver that ran a 4.47.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and he caught everything. There was Jimmy. What was Jimmy's name? Jimmy or something like that. Oh, I'm gonna mess that up. I forgot Jimmy's last name. But he was a little guy, about 5'9", but he ran a 4.21. He blazed it. Okay, he wound up playing in Canada this year, but he blazed it. And then Keon Smith was a 315-pound offensive lineman who absolutely, ran well. He was a 5'1" 40 or 5'2" 40, something like that, a 315. And he, again, long arms, and he wound up making it through camp with the Atlanta Falcons. But you could have put a 7th round on him.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
It almost seems like
it's not like they didn't have the They all had the They all had the medics. They were all right on, but they just didn't pull the trigger.
And you know what's crazy? The NFL, it's not as if there are not. So in our first during our first topic, we had mentioned past sports greats that went to HBCUs. So you have the Walter Paytons, you have the Jerry Rices, you have the Michael Strahans, you have the Doug Williamses. So there's evidence of success in the league from people that went to HBCUs, and yet there's still the hesitation or the apprehension from the NFL, even though there's evidence that the college that you went to a certain extent, is almost irrelevant or immaterial because it's about the talent of the person.
Well, you're going to see the transfer portal become an increasingly huge mechanism for HBCU students, but unfortunately, they'll have to use it in order to transfer to a PWI.
To get in, to get in.
Yep.
To make the comparison fair, be like, you know, as a freshman and sophomore, I started at Hampton, and then I transferred up to, you know, just Ohio State, whatever. And then I did it there, and then people are like, ooh, oh my gosh, look at, you know, and that's how they're going to have to do it. You know, unless you see a huge influx and commitment by young athletes just saying, you know what, we're going to the HBCU. Come here and find me. You know, if you got the commitment from the kids and their parents that they're 5-star athletes and they trust that they can go to an HBCU and still make it to the league, which they can, and you see 4- and 5-star athletes going there, that will force the NFL to pay attention.
Just speaking about the NFL.
I mean, no one's gonna.
Sorry, Dave. Just speaking about the NFL and how you were talking about earlier how they were holding back, you know, for having you guys do it again this year because they have something in the works. For me, I'm just gonna make a statement, and I would like to hear your take on it. And obviously, you guys too jump in on it. Just hearing that, it makes me feel the entertainment side of things, and it's kind of almost similar to how the NFL waited to draft the first openly gay player, and they made a charade about it in a sense with Michael Sam.
Yeah,
I think the Cowboys were the ones that drafted him. You know what I mean? Like,
No, it was the Rams.
Oh, the Rams. There you go, the Rams.
Yeah.
And you know, like it was a showcase. You know, like and everyone knew about it because it was speculation. So it sold the event. You know, like it almost feels like the NFL seems to be going in this celebratory kind of manner where they're gonna get to the point of. Because like you said, you, if anyone knows, you've written the reports on all these kids, on top of already studying all the other kids that were already coming out. Like you already said, when the draft was happening, the names were off of all your boards already. So these kids are known, you know what I mean? But it's almost seemed like they don't want to give the accolade. Who was the last biggest one that was drafted? Was it McNair?
Probably,
Yeah.
Nah.
Who else would it?
Strahan. I think it was Strahan.
Strahan was after? Okay, so it'd be Strahan.
Yeah.
But still
I think it was Strahan.
far in between. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like the NFL is waiting for a moment to create this celebratory kind of like situation, to make it more glorious?
No, so here's the deal. Like, right before COVID hit, the NFL was poised and positioned to hold a combine for HBCU kids down in Miami. They were paying for everything.
Okay.
Then COVID hit and they had to cancel. Okay? So then the following year, after they canceled it, we had all those players that didn't get a pro day, really. And then we had all the other kids from last year's draft come to, UAB, and we just did a combined thing. And we saw, I think it was 6 of the CFL teams were there. And the NFL teams wanted to come. That's why we did it the day after the UAB Pro Day, because we wanted to make sure NFL teams were in town. The NFL teams just didn't give a special sanction to kids that were outside of the travel zone to do it. Now that, to me, was BS. Like, they should have gave us special, but because they weren't in control, it wasn't their gig, we didn't get it. Okay?
Makes
so
sense.
it is what it is. That being said, I mean, Ulyss was in conversations with them months beforehand. They could have jumped in. Like, they knew about it. They knew we were going to be, and they could have said, you know what, let us partner with you, or let us just take it, or, whatever. Ulyss is no ego. The man is zero ego. He would have been like, cool, it's all about the kids, no big deal, right? So we had it planned, ready to go, and they could have taken it, and Ulyss would have walked away, no big deal. Okay, that's just the way it goes. They chose not to. Now, this year, they have what I think it's called the Legacy Bowl that's coming up in February here.
Okay.
It's going to be the first All-Star game that's been played for HBCUs in a long while. I don't have the dates and the years on that. I apologize. I should have brought that to the table tonight. But, a lot of my friends are handling it, and a lot of HBCU grads are handling it. Part of that, I think they're going to hold a combine, and they want to see how that works. But I've talked to that board and told them what we did. They love what we did, and they said, hey, we already had some commitments for this year, but we'll open it up again next year because we love what you guys did. So, for me, I think it's more about their plans got screwed up, and then they had to adjust. We kind of just stepped in, filled a void in a gap, and then now they're trying to correct it and put things on NFL Network and, like you said, do a little bit more of a show, which is where it should be. And to be frank, guys, like I've talked to Disney and I've talked to Hulu about doing an HBCU, just overall sports channel, because we see all this money that's going into into the Pac-12, SEC, all their sports channels are making hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm like, why can't we add, for an extra, 50 cents on Hulu or on Disney Plus an HBCU sports channel, giving opportunities to not only the athletes on the field, but sideline reporters, camera people, kids who want to be, in production, people who want to just run cable, whatever. Like, give them the practical, knowledge and ability to do it, and utilize the students to give them internships inside this HBCU program. It hasn't moved fast at all, but the conversations have lasted over a year and a half now, and like I said, I keep plugging away and trying to push it where and when I can, because I think that an HBCU sports channel would be great. Now you saw, ESPN signed certain conferences to deal, so I think that's kind of slipping away from it overall. I think they honestly think they were afraid of an HBCU sports channel.
I was going to say that
because that would have brought athletes to the HBCUs to play, because now there's a whole sports channel.
There's a platform
that their parents can watch them on and whatever,
So David, actually, you know what? Holla at me after the show. I actually have a friend that went to an HBCU that's a Disney exec. She just got a promotion about a year ago. It's not in sports, but she's at Disney. So we should talk after the show.
No, absolutely. I'm all about it.
Yeah, that can hopefully help out. Another question. So obviously, Primetime, aka Deion Sanders, made a big splash when he became head coach of the Jackson State football team. Can you talk a little about, from your perspective, what Deion's impact has been for this movement of athletes being profiled at HBCUs?
I think it's a great start, but as soon as Deion goes to Florida State and becomes the head coach of Florida State,
it's true. It's gonna go away.
It's gonna go away. Exactly. What truly, it's the commitment by the community which needs to be incredibly pushed forward and selfishly pushed forward. So, like, Deion doesn't need money. He's taken care, right? That's prime time, all this stuff.
He's good. He even made a rap song about it. Must be the money. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, exactly. He's invested his money. He's good. But a lot of these schools, again, they can't pay their. Nick Saban's making like $9 million, right? I can't say it on your show. It's my show. I could say it, but Kelly down at LSU is making $10 million a year. An HBCU coach is like making maybe $150,000, $200,000.
Yeah.
I got high school coaches making more than that up here. That's crazy.
What I'm saying. So it's like, when you go to an HBCU, it's got to be a commitment. And you could be an LSU, receivers coach, make $350,000. All right. So you have a lot of young, black, talented coaches that to provide for their family and work less, but provide for their family, are going to PWI schools because there's just the more money. And that's what I'm saying. Like, unless you can get a channel and more influx of cash to the HBCUs, it's going to be hard to keep that kind of celebrity in the game, because, while there's people like me who are very passionate about it, I'm not obviously at an HBCU. I'm welcome to work there. But again, if, I interviewed at Arizona State last weekend for a job, and if they come calling, they're just going to be able to, absolutely endorse the salary just because of money.
Yeah.
So, I would work at HBCU. I would love it. I'd have passion for it while I was there. I would do my best. But again, financially for my family, when the PWI comes calling, it's something I really have to consider. And that's why I was like, well, if you get a channel, you get more revenue coming in, you start, being able to get donations in,
Advertising
and
money.
advertising money, heighten the salaries just to get it in range.
Yeah.
Like, why go be the receiver coach over at LSU for $350 when we're paying you $500, coach?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, cool. You know what? You're right. I'm getting paid more here, and I don't need to go somewhere else to make it for my family. Like, I'm cool. I got enough to be here. Now, there's the ambitious coaches that are still going to take the receiver job and move. Like, I get it. You want to move up. You want to try to be a head coach and, big time. Cool. But you'll see some really great coaches. If you can up the level of salary, do it for the program. Because the commitment to the program will also make it easier for them to come home to the wife at night and kids and be like, okay, we're good.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I have one question. I'm going to switch it again just because I'm a basketball guy, and it's funny. It's kind of onto the realm what Conway was just asked you, but obviously there's a lot more money. I won't say obviously, but there's a lot more money in the football space as far as, like we said, advertising and the colleges. The coaches making a lot more money. Football coaches make a lot more money than basketball coaches. Do you see in the near future a time where these college athletes could actually now feel like they don't have to go to these PWI schools to feel like they can make it to the NBA? Do you think that on the HBCU side in basketball, what do you think it's going to take for them to get a little bit more recognized? Because Ryan and I had a discussion the other day, just kind of the same question. What is it going to take? My opinion was I think it's going to take a 5-star recruit of 4 or 5 kids to go to one school and really get a lot of press and fanfare.
You're talking about Michigan Fab 5.
Yes, exactly.
We just said that too.
I feel like that's
he's trying to get the Fab 5 together.
Listen, I feel like that's the only way, because I feel like, again, I'm playing basketball. I'm going to HBCU was like, that was the plan C. It was like, if this doesn't work, then I guess I got to go to HBCU. But saying that, it was just like, well, my professional career is going to be over if I go there. But I'll go there and get a good education and have a good time. But I feel like that needs to shift and change, and I feel like I don't see that happening anytime soon. I went to college 20 years ago, and it's still the same premise where if you go to HBCU, don't think about going professional. Definitely don't think about going to the NBA. So I guess my question is, do you think that will ever change? And if it does, what do you think it's going to take for it to change?
Perception.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Perception is reality, and that's where the PWIs have out-marketed and really brainwashed.
It's the money.
Yeah.
Society. Well, it's more of a brainwashing, too. I talked to a lot of my friends who are black athletes and asked them why they went different places and this and that. And they've said some kind of like heart-wrenching ideas as a white male that I never knew. I never understood, right? Like, I don't walk through life, like they do. So I love that they give me their impression of what's going on and how they see the impression of the world. And most of it's just an impression of being that they have to go to, like you just said, you have to go to a PWI to make it to the league. Mm-hmm. That's false. Mm-hmm. I have a website up right now, like you guys do, of over 100 pro football players and a lot of gold jackets that went to HBCU, more so than a lot of PWIs that still get the recruits. And guess what? They're getting the recruits and HBCUs aren't. It's just a perception. So I don't care what sport you're in. It's just, it's the perception, it's the marketing, that the belief that these young men and women have to go to a PWI versus HBCU in order to make their dreams come true. And that's just, it's falsehood. Yeah. But that's the perception. And you know what? If we do a better job marketing, then that perception would go away.
Got you.
It's a very valid point, man.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a very valid point.
It does.
Makes perfect sense.
Very valid point. And that goes back to tying into the importance of the creation of like an HBCU channel, like you said, where there's more notoriety drawn. Things like that will hopefully change the tide, and hopefully you're very successful with that venture. We look forward to seeing that come through in True Blue for you and for all these kids, man.
Well, again, for me, it's just a passion. It's a project of passion, right? I need, obviously, bigger ears and ability to jump on the project. I've done a lot of research on what it needs to happen. I've talked to executives at the Pac-12 network. They've been great. And they've talked to me about, how when they started, what was the biggest cost, what was the biggest, difficulties and hurdles to get over. And it really is going to take a commitment by the HBCU community to work together, want to do it, see a benefit in a collective, and staying true to that, no matter what it's going to take, even through the hard times. Because they'll get pushback. They're definitely going to get some venomous comments about, that doesn't make sense. You should just do this deal on your own and whatever, and don't worry about everybody else. But, the power is in, the combination of all HBCUs together, sticking together and being committed. It really could be a special project that could blow up. And again, if you get that going, you get that rolling, and that revenue starts coming in, now athletes will start coming in because and coaches will get better and facilities will get better and all of it will just make it a better experience for college athletes to go down there and go to the HBCUs. That's why I want them doing the Pathway Project up in Seattle in this summer coming up, is in order to get some great athletes from up there to realize HBCUs are a legitimate place to go to school and get recognized, not only get a good education, but play basketball and have a great time.
Yeah, man, that's awesome, Dave. Dave, man, listen, I want to take a second out and thank you for being a part of the show with us and giving us allowing our platform for you to come out and just open up on this topic. Before we sign off and everything, Dave, just do a little plug for your sports consultant and what you do, and drop your website and stuff like that.
Oh, thank you very much. So what I do is called Maverick Sports Consulting. We work with coaches, programs, as well as athletes individually and as teams, and we speak to them on how to be professionals and how to handle the interview process, and as well as manage their social media. And, I grade film for them as well to let them know what the real reality is of prospecting, whether you're a high school athlete or a college athlete, of where you should be looking at going, whether it's a draft pick or where, picking the right college for yourself. So for me, it's just a passion to help give back to a community, sports community, where I've gotten so much out of it. I was never big enough or fast enough to play sports out of high school. I played at high school, but then after that I was a power lifter, and then that was it. That was a wrap. So I like to give back to the young men and women of the world that have our gifted athletes, and let them know how to manage their careers and maximize every opportunity that's in front of them, because there's a lot of opportunities young men and women don't realize are sitting there until they've already wasted them. So.
And so you got a website. What's your website for that?
MaverickSportsConsulting.com. Sorry. Yeah, I'm a terrible marketer.
That's okay.
I'm very good at what I do.
So that's a testament to your ability there. You're a horrible marketer, but great at what you do, man. That's what's right, man. So again, Dave, man, we want to thank you for coming out on the show.
Hey, much appreciated.
We really appreciate it, and it was great having you on. Again,
good luck with everything.
Big shout out to David Turner out here with us. And again, Dave, man, we appreciate you. And we look forward to getting you on the show again when we do some more sports talk.
Absolutely. Anytime, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
Thanks, Dave, man. We'll talk to you later, bud.
Talk to you guys soon.
All right, bye.
That was great having the insight.
Yeah.
You can see the in depth, like how much, there is a passion. You can hear it behind his voice. And he's actually inspired me with a couple thoughts I'm going to talk to you guys on off air.
Okay.
But again, David Turner, great. I featured on his show earlier this year. He has his own show called I think it's Maverick Sports, and his partner at the time had gone down. He got sick, needed a quick fill-in. I was on the show with him, and that's how I had the opportunity to understand and gauge his personality and his knowledge base with everything going on. And I thought it would be a perfect fit for us with this show. You guys agree?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So
Definitely.
What opened you up mostly about that conversation with Dave? Thank you, Lee.
So it's just crazy that the players that I just named, Jerry Rice, Michael Strahan, Walter Payton, these are Hall of Fame players and arguably the greatest players at their position of all time. definitely Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver. Actually, people held Jerry Rice as the greatest football player of all time. It's arguable between him and Lawrence Taylor. But the fact that these players came out in the 80s, in the early 80s, and there's empirical evidence with those players that you can have an HBCU athlete that still can succeed at the next level, and there's still apprehension in 2022.
Yeah, man.
It's sad, but that's why we need people like David, and I'm glad he's out there on the forefront, trying to make this happen, because there's so much opportunity that's being lost for these athletes that are just as equally, if not even more talented than the athletes that choose to go the route of the PWI.
So if you look at the correlation between the two I'm about to drop, there's a real change on the horizon, and you could see it happening. It should shift itself. Like, let's take a second and look at the music business, right? For years, the music business was always about the big dogs, the big wigs, the Def Jams, the Interscope Records, the big dogs. And now we're looking, that was 20 years ago when they were really, Arista Records, all these big record labels. Nowadays, you don't even need a record label to come out. Everything's independent.
Yeah.
With the way technology is now and how you can get yourself out marketed the correct way, you can do things on your own. So that leads to the point of where he was going to, whereas, and again, he briefly touched on the transfer portal. I don't know if you guys really paid attention to how that works. It's definitely going to change the dynamic of college sports.
It makes sense. I didn't think about it from that.
And I didn't either until he said it, how it will, but it goes to how he explained how the other players that he had on his list for his draft board never got drafted, but they got offers to come to camp afterwards. So we'll talk to you off. When the draft is off, we'll call you, bring you in as an extra body and see if you can fit in. Until that gets more normalized, instead of, like what happens is these players, they have a great breakout season, and now this transfer portal will open up an opportunity for them, like he said, to transfer to Ohio State and Michigan instead of staying home. And it's not until the HBCUs do get their own platform. Like, could you imagine that? You don't tell me guys like Jay and Tidal and all them won't pump money into these things. If they can find the right marketing tool or venture to get those types of brands behind it, it's over after they do that.
It's a wrap.
Because it's literally all about the money. You heard him say it. The wide receivers coach for LSU will get paid $350,000, but the head coach of an HBCU will make $100,000. I tell you, there's high school coaches out here, right here in the Big North in Jersey, that are making $250,000.
That's crazy.
Right? And you tell me the head coach of a prestigious HBCU college program is barely breaking six figures? So that means the assistants are making $15,000-$20,000, if that. You know what I mean? So, like, it's insane. It's always about the money, though. So until the money gets controlled, that'll control the narrative when it comes to...
And here's the thing, and this is what they're, I think, afraid of. When you have millions of dollars pouring into an institution through athletics, it's a ripple effect, because it's not just the athletics now.
No, the school benefits. New wings, science labs, all this shit.
Exactly. So now when you have an improved science lab, now you have people who have, aspirations in medicine.
For the kids who are not there for sports, they're there for the actual academics.
They want to be a doctor. They want to be a chemist. They're
going to have more opportunities now.
There's more opportunities. And what ends up happening with that is now they graduate and they get these prestigious jobs. And then it's like, oh, where'd you go to college? Oh, I went to an HBCU. So now that the kid coming up that wants to be a doctor, engineer, or whatever, what have you,
means more now.
It's like, oh, they went to Hampton, they went to Howard.
It's more respected.
They went to Clark, they went to Morehouse, they went to, Southern, they went to, wherever. It's like, oh, I didn't really think about that before, because if I wanted to be a doctor, I thought like, oh, okay, well, Harvard Medical or NYU or Columbia. But now I'm thinking like, you know what? I think I want to go to Howard. I think I want to go to Morehouse. I think I want to go to Prairie View. I think I want to go to Delaware State, Bowie State, wherever. It brings in money that's gonna lift up the school as a whole.
Yes.
And then it just becomes a cycle now of people wanting to go to those schools for things in addition to athletics.
Absolutely.
And now you have a better workforce that's coming out of these colleges.
For sure. You know what I was happy about, obviously? He broke the news on the fact that he's doing the combine on the basketball side.
Yeah, that was big. That's breaking news.
Yeah.
That's the first time we had breaking news on our show.
First time won't be the last, though.
Yeah, it definitely won't be the last. And it's,
Pat us up.
yeah, it is. But you definitely gotta, appreciate those moments because that was big news. What he just said.
That was exciting for me because again, it's just like when I asked him, it's just, do you think the basketball side can actually get to the point where football is going now? I did a little research. I didn't know this, so it maybe might be a chance. Did you know that it's just like how Deion Sanders went to Jackson State and who's the other coach?
Eddie George is the coach as well.
Yeah.
Basketball side is doing it. There's former NBA players that are coaching in HBCUs. Listen to this.
Yeah.
Mo Williams.
Yeah, Mo Williams.
He's at
Yeah.
Alabama State.
Okay.
Kenny Anderson, my idol.
Special K.
He's at Fisk University.
Wow.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Mamba Cynthia Cooper. Played
Yeah,
for the
Cynthia
Houston.
Cooper. Yeah.
She's Texas Southern.
Cynthia Cooper, for those that didn't watch, so
She was a bad woman.
I don't care about gender or sex. If you can play basketball, I'm gonna watch.
Yeah, I
like
enjoy
Malik,
her.
I
She's a
love
baller.
basketball.
She's a baller.
Cynthia Cooper, until Diana Taurasi came into the league,
She was.
She
Yeah.
was I agree.
she was MJ.
Juan Dixon.
I was gonna say that.
Remember Juan Dixon?
Taurasi was Kobe.
Yeah, exactly. Juan Dixon, he played in Maryland. He played in Portland. He's at Coppin State.
Okay.
Lindsey Hunter.
Yeah, Lil Lindsey Hunter, the point guard,
Pistons.
Detroit Pistons.
Missouri Valley State.
He went to an HBCU.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
George Lynch that went to North Carolina. He's
Wow.
at Clark.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I didn't know. Oh,
He's at
shit,
Clark.
okay.
And Reggie Theus. That's a throwback. He's at Bethune-Cookman. Pretty Reggie Theus.
So you're starting to see the trend
It's
shift.
happening now, man. It's happening. So
You've seen this trend. You've seen the trend shift, and it's actually a little bit. When we first started the conversation tonight, I didn't want to say that it felt just so doom and gloom, just because of just like how we all know the accolades are there, and they should be more recognized for their what they do on and off the court in the field, but it doesn't really happen. So to hear Dave talk about it in a different light, and to hear these projects coming down the line, and even to hear how the NFL told them to not go through with it, just shows that the NFL is like, listen, hold off because we're going to do a bigger release on this.
Yeah.
We're going to integrate this and we're going to start changing it up. It just shows that there's a change on the horizon.
yeah, man.
And it's something to look forward to. Like you said, it's something to get a little happy about or excited, like you said, League.
Yes, sir. It's definitely exciting.
Definitely. So, next up is our segment we call What You Rockin' With, where we talk about what we're feeling, what we're vibing with, what we're rocking with this particular week. And we'll get into that on the other side of this break.
This is what you rockin' with inside the SNA Live podcast.
It's no introduction.
And we're back, season 3, episode 4, Black to the Future, part 2.
Purdue.
Shout out to David Turner, excellent guest.
Yes, sir, for sure.
Really gave us some great insight into what's going on right now with the proliferation of the HBCU experience coming to the forefront in collegiate sports, whether it be football and, surprisingly, to our delight, myself and Malik specifically, basketball as well. And now we're gonna see if Leak's gonna steal my What You Rock With again.
I have a feeling that
Ryan he stole one of my questions for Dave. I was like, God damn.
So we mentioned this before on the show.
he said it on air too. You couldn't hear Malik, but he's on his microphone like,
You stole my question. That was mine. You hear him whispering like this.
So we purposefully don't share what we're going to talk about. I mean, we have our topics laid out, obviously, but we purposely don't share what we're going to say so that our experience or our reaction is genuine for the viewing and listening audience. So, Leak, I'm going to let you set it off,
yeah, I
brother.
think Leak should always set it off, honestly. I think that should be a new trend.
Just in case I steal it.
Just in case, so we could just say, all right, whatever he said, because he just took everything I was going to talk about.
Not stealing this one. So, what I'm rocking with this week, I'm rocking with, it's going to be a little
left, you going left again?
No, just stay with me in this.
Okay.
I'm rocking with, I had to think about how to word this. I'm rocking with, I don't want to, and when I say this, I'm not saying this in a demeaning way. I'm rocking with the 1%, the billionaires, the people with money who are putting their money where their mouth is, where they're putting their money into something that can make change and make and a cause versus buying $20 million yachts and jets. I say all to say, shout out to these specifically Have you guys heard of Overtime Elite?
No,
I haven't.
So it's an amateur league that just started, and it's basketball. So basically, it was a bunch of multi-millionaires who came together to fund basically an amateur league for 16 kids from 16 to 19 years old.
Okay.
So basically what it was, or what it is that obviously you have these kids 16, 17, 18 years old. Predominantly, most of these kids are kids that just really don't care about school, unfortunately. And a lot of these kids fall through the cracks because they're these great athletes, or they just come from these, I want to just say it's all academic. Sometimes they just in these small towns that you've never heard of, and they don't get a chance to get that exposure that they need. Not only here in the States, but also overseas. So basically they put together, it's basically a sports program or sports school where these kids, it's based out of Atlanta.
Okay.
Where they actually it's actually an arena. They built an arena, and it's literally like a sports program. They have a gym, then they have housing, and they have facilities where they can work out, lift, do weights. They have teachers and tutors that come in, and they actually have classes from 8 to 10 o'clock. But it's not a school. It's just
it's not like IMG.
It's not IMG. So it's a little like a step above IMG. So IMG is actually a school where they have teachers and professors, but these basically just administrators that come in, teach the kids during the day so that they at least get their high school diploma.
Okay.
So it is certified, they get their high school diploma. But it's 3 teams. They recruit. So whoever is running it, there's a CEO, CFO that runs it, and they actually go out and recruit kids from predominantly more in the States, but also from overseas. And they find the best talent and they put them into this program, to this sports facility. And as of right now, there's only 3 teams. It's obviously going to increase. But I have to say, the investors who started it, Jeff Bezos, Drake.
Okay.
Those were the 2 big. Those were actually the first 2 big investors. Then later on, you had Kevin Garnett, Carmelo, Chris Paul.
Shout out to Drake, brother. It's gonna be okay.
Don't cry. I hope you didn't cry when you gave him money. But I felt that was something that was good, man. It's just like these guys they see this gap, and these kids who don't have these opportunities, whether it be they're not into school, they don't have the education, they don't want to go to college, they don't have the mental aptitude to really go to college and do well, but they have the talent. Or again, like I said, they're in these small towns where they go to this little high school and they're playing against little 5, 6, 5, 7 kids. They're scoring 30, but nobody's ever going to recognize
They're not paying attention to it.
Not paying attention to them. So just shout out to them. And I think I say that to say, you know what actually this came about. I was watching Billions last night. I don't know if you've seen the new season. I'm not gonna give the story, but there's a part in there where one of the stars his whole thing is to go after the elite because they're all about themselves and they're not giving back. They're not giving back. So that's what made me kind of think about this. But shout out, especially somebody like Jeff Bezos, and
because he doesn't have to do that.
He didn't have to do that.
No, of course.
Obviously, he has the fucking money to do it, but he didn't have.
He didn't have to. No.
I forgot to leave out. These kids get a minimum of $100,000 salaries.
Oh wow.
They're getting money.
Okay,
$100,000. That's the bottom line.
They're pretty much conditioning them to become
next
level athletes.
Professional athletes. $100,000.
All I would say is I hope with that is educational financial literacy and money management.
So hopefully, I didn't dig too deep into that. Hopefully it is, but like I said, they at least get their high school education. But when I read this, I was like, wow. So if they don't make it to the pros, whether it be NBA or overseas, they give them $100,000 to go to college towards their college education. So at the end of the day, listen, it didn't work out.
So if you don't get pro to go get the big check, then you still take that money
and then become a doctor,
put it into your education.
Become whatever you want to.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
That's fucking awesome.
That's real cool.
So
that is real awesome.
I just feel like a lot of these, people with all this money need to put their money into something that's helping others, and especially the underprivileged, people out there. And again, not only in the States, overseas. And I think more of that needs to happen. So I'm just shouting out all the Jeff Bezos, all the Mark Cuban.
What's it called? Overtime what?
Overtime Elite.
Okay.
Overtime Elite.
That's what's up, man.
Shout out to Overtime Elite.
It's first year. It just started in October. So
that's what's up.
It's starting. It's new. But let's see. We'll see what happens with it. Shout out to all the people with the big pockets.
Yeah, round of applause.
Yeah, actually, I got to give one. That's actually really good. Yeah, that's a good one. So I'll jump in real quick, Conway. It's funny because it's not that you're stealing any ideas or anything like that. That I never heard of that venture, which is awesome.
We're on the same wave.
Absolutely. So what I did with this week was it was more about respecting the guys that have names, and they decided to take their image and likeness, and instead of opening up 10 car dealerships and 10 car washes, they took their talents and they got less money to go coach at these prestigious schools, because they are prestigious. They're not, Power 10 because of the notoriety when it goes to marketing, but the Eddie Georges, like you said, the Deion Sanders, and you just listed a list of college basketball coaches I didn't even know they were coaching in HBCUs. But again, those guys all have names. Cynthia Cooper, right?
Yeah.
She has a very well known and established name and brand.
Definitely. Olympic medals. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So she could have went off and just spoke across the country and probably made 3 times more money than she's getting coaching.
Facts.
So my thing is that I'm rocking with the coaches that decided to give back at this stage in the game in their life, and these guys are not old. I think Deion would be the oldest one, I would think. Or actually, there's one more that just was it Marvin Lewis now that's coaching in HBCU? It's Marvin Lewis.
The dude from the Raiders, the black dude from the Raiders.
Hugh Jackson. So again, there you go. Grambling. He's at Grambling now. Another big time guy at a big time college program. Yeah. So I was rocking with just, again, these guys taking this type of jump in their career and really doubling down and giving back.
Like you said, they ain't making a lot of money.
They're not making a lot of money. Gratefully,
we just found that out.
For the simple fact that they have had illustrious careers to whatever level of their height of their career. They've all made money though. So they're not hemorrhaging for it. Yeah. But again, like I said, instead of doubling down and spending that time to go about and use their image and likeness for something else, they're giving back.
Yeah, that's real cool.
And that's what I'm rocking with this week, man.
That's what's up.
And just to touch on something you had just said about the notoriety of these other schools. Best believe Ohio State in football, Alabama in football, Duke in basketball, North Carolina in basketball, they are not inherently powerhouse schools. We
made them
are the people that made them powerhouse schools, because without the Jamal Mashburns, the Grant Hills, the Chris Webbers at Michigan, Jalen Rose at Michigan, Glenn Robinson at Purdue,
Larry Johnson, UNLV.
Yeah, without those players, these schools wouldn't be making the money that they have been making, over this time. Yeah. So all it takes is, it's going to start with a few, and if it grows from there, then the HBCUs will become the powerhouse schools, because now the talent is going there as opposed to the PWIs. And then when that happens, the money follows.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I don't know if I mentioned it in passing, but I don't think it was a topic of what I was rocking with. So what I'm rocking with this week is the reason I ended up at Howard. And that is, we talked about this earlier in the podcast, that we didn't have a lot of exposure to HBCUs, being from New York, being from the Northeast, because there are no HBCUs up there. And our parents didn't go to HBCUs, and that wasn't something that was talked about in our families. The reason I ended up going to Howard was almost solely based on a TV show from back in the day, A Different World.
Yeah, that's how I mentioned earlier. That's how I knew about it, man.
And you had mentioned, like I said earlier in the show. What I did not know is during the years A Different World was on air, HBCU enrollment
must have went
grew 24%. Now, 24% doesn't sound like a large number.
It is.
But for a TV show,
to do that,
to impact enrollment at real life HBCUs is insane.
It is.
Because Hillman was made up, but
yeah, that's not even a real college.
No, it was meant to, but still, you knew what they were doing.
Yep, exactly.
With it, and
it was very purposeful.
Yes, it was.
Doing. So,
and they normalized, like, for me watching it, I didn't see a difference on what Duke would look like other than the complexion of majority of the people at the school. Exactly. But like the normal college life was the normal college life portrayed on the show.
Exactly.
It wasn't like they were in some hood. They had their own cafes. They had their own. Yeah, it was just like every other experience, except no one talked about them.
Exactly. So I would watch that show and be like, yo, this shit looks so cool. I don't know where Hillman is at.
I'm finding it.
Because at the time, I didn't know it wasn't a real
fictional
school.
Yeah.
But Howard started with an H.
Yeah, and Spellman.
And you know, it was in the region. Hillman was in, I think, Virginia.
Virginia,
It was it Virginia?
Yeah, it was
Yeah, Virginia.
Virginia.
And Howard is right on the outskirts of Virginia in DC. So I was like, you know what? I want to check that place out. And, you know, I went down there for a visit and I was like, yep, this is the spot. This is definitely the spot. So shout out, Debbie Allen was, I believe, the producer and director of a lot of the episodes. It was created by, I believe, Bill Cosby. But Debbie Allen was the force that
Behind it
in terms of, you know, it was created by Bill Cosby, but Debbie Allen was another Howard grad that was the major force behind it. So that's what I'm rocking with this particular
That's what's
week,
up.
this particular episode.
I'm thinking about Hillman now. I know Spellman is an all-girls school, correct?
Yeah.
So just hearing Spellman though and Howard, the H, Spellman, Hill, you know, I can see how they made the name.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like to me, just listening to it. Now they took the more recognizable ones and created a school.
Exactly.
But no, like I said earlier, the way that I was turned on to it was that show, and that show opened up obviously a lot of other people's eyes because you just had the stats for it. 24%.
That's big.
That's a big jump, man.
Yeah, huge jump. It had a huge impact on my generation and future generations because it's still impacting because it's now on, I want to say it's on Hulu, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's on Hulu, and it actually trended. Like there was a revamp of it where people were looking to watch it all over again, so it upticked. So that's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And that brings us to the conclusion of this particular episode. We appreciate you joining us on this journey. As usual, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple. You can find us on our social media page. Our link tree is on the social media page.
Yeah, you can follow us on all of social media handles at SNA Live Podcast, and we have a link tree attached to our IG, and hopefully we'll get a couple more outlets out, maybe a webpage soon. We're building and growing, so you guys get a chance, go click, follow us on YouTube,
follow us
IG,
on Instagram, follow us
Facebook,
on Facebook,
Twitter. Yeah. We're out there.
Yep. And once again, shout out David Turner for joining us on this episode.
That was big.
Big guest, and he was dropping exclusives on SNA Live right here.
You heard it here.
Yes, sir. And in the words of Shirley Chisholm, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. We out.
Peace.
You have just listened to the SNA Live experience. We want to thank you for tuning in with us. We'll be back with another episode.